welcome to our Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting for January 12, 2016. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll do the pledge up. I heard you. Good enough timing. Okay, so we reported to closed session this morning at 8:30. A conference with legal counsel anticipating litigation, initiation of litigation, one case pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D4, and there was no action taken. So now we have public comments. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda, unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the regular agenda. If the public comment is not completed during an allotted time period, it will be continued at the conclusion of the consent agenda in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of the comments to be heard. So, public comment, please. We have 5 minutes. Public comments?
Per person?
Per person, yes. I didn't want everybody to rush up to the podium at one time.
Joe Kelly from the unrepresented area of District 1. Last week when you folks had your little meeting, Mr. Edson made a couple of comments that I didn't quite understand. County close to disappearing. When you bring up something like that, you should be prepared to kind of continue it and advise the people of this county what is going on or what you perceive to be going on. It would be helpful for we the people to understand. Secondly, as the presiding officer, are you still the OES chief? Is that what this is all about? The non-change that happened the other day? Because if it is, you could have been appointed the official for OES and not have been chair. So I think you have a lot of questions to be being asked and need to be answered so that the people can have a full understanding of what's going on in this county. Because to me, watching it on the screen the other day, I didn't think much of it. I've lost respect for people I had respect for. And I understand throughout their district, they've lost respect. So I hope things won't continue this way and think you have a 3-member cabal to run this county. We've been through that BS. So please pay attention. And I'll get to it in the number 5. Thank you.
Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. I too have something to say about the meeting last week. I've written a poem to memorialize the circus I saw unfolding here. And first, I think I should start off by saying you people don't even know how to run a meeting. There's something called Robert's Rules of Order, which means you don't make a motion on top of a motion, and you certainly don't second that motion. So we know you don't understand Robert's Rules of Order. Some of you at the least have been on this board for a year already, and you don't know how to conduct a meeting. Something else called the Brown Act that I believe some of you have violated. I believe some of you have conspired behind the scenes to create a choreograph a situation that we saw unfold here last week? If you want respect, you've got to give respect. I don't see very much being shared among the members of this board. Cliff, I apologize for calling you a bully and a coward. I didn't realize I had also called you an egomaniac and a power monger, but I'm not going to apologize for that. I didn't call anyone an F and A hole, but that's what was in my mind. I practice undue restraint that I don't usually have the power to control. I screen very little. I have no filters. What I feel and what I think usually comes out my mouth as soon as I open it. I'm not going to be able to finish this today. My rant will go on. But before my time is up, I want to share with you a poem that I created. It's dedicated to the majority of the 2016 Calaveras County Board of Supervisors, and it's titled, "A Deal is Not a Deal." And it goes like this. A deal is not a deal when made by, dishonorable people. Confidence is not created amid confusion and division. Consensus is not the same as collusion. Trust, when broken and torn, can never be mended. Respect and integrity are equally as fragile. And finally, shame. Shame. Shame should be shared by all. Some extra copies in case anybody would like to have one.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Thomas Reeves with Pacific Gas and Electric. And I didn't notice it on the agenda, but I wanted to reiterate the company's support of any efforts that you have in the county to work on erosion control. We understand that the county may be considering a grant for erosion control efforts, and we support that. And we want to be here for you to provide financial assistance and other resources for you in that endeavor. So please call upon me, and we can work on that together. We feel it's a project that we can work on together, and I look forward to working on that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Rosemary Wilson from McCullum Hill, District 2. I wasn't going to mention this, but since Joe Kelly had spoken, I think it's worth bringing up that as the chairperson of the Office of Emergency, or the head of OES, it would be appropriate for people within the county who have been affected by the Butte fire to contact and call that person with any questions that they had regarding the fire. Last week, there was some discussion that Chris Wright was not available to answer questions initially regarding the fire by people within his district, but because he was, as it turns out, he was busy dealing with Butte fire issues and family issues arising from that. But it's not at all, it would not be at all out of place for community members, even those in District 2, to contact the head of emergency services to ask specific questions. So therefore, it was not out of ordinary in the way that it was alluded to be at the last meeting when there was comment that Chris wasn't there to take those calls. Those calls were properly posed to the questions were appropriately, I expect, posed to the officer of emergency services, and that person being Supervisor Edson. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other public comments?
Good morning, folks. I missed you. My life wasn't complete without seeing all your wonderful faces.
Is this the first time all year?
Pardon me?
First time all year?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for your decisions at the last board meeting. Controversial. And as far as I'm concerned personally, it's way past time to break old habits. I know it was in prior years. It was very wonderful because it was nice to have a $12,000 raise, each and every one of you, each one of the prior board members. And it is your decision. The chair is representing the majority of the board. And as far as I'm concerned, to make myself more popular with some of the folks behind me, thank you. I think you made a sincere and honest decisions, and I'm all for it. Putting niceties aside, I want to bring to your attention that all 5 of you were appointed. I don't know if you know it or not, but because of that, there's certain consequences. CSA 1, you've been on this board for a couple of years now, and I wonder, have you ever seen any report about CSA 1? Because then when you were appointed, and I know you didn't campaign for it, to be, I don't know what you want to call it, the trustees for CSA 1, which takes about almost 2/3 of the special district funds. I haven't heard once was any report presented to the board. And that's, to me, is not acceptable because you talk about a lot of money, a lot of people, and I want to remind you also there's a number of elected officials in this neighborhood also in CSA 1. I'm a patient guy. I don't believe in litigations. Because litigations always end up at the expense of all the folks behind me, and I was watching the TV. But I would like to encourage you this year, do get in there, take a look at it. As an incentive, the people who, well, let's just say that needs to be looked at. I don't care if you do it publicly or behind doors, but I would like to see, take that, what was put on you, that burden upon you, that has to be accountable. It's still public money, and both state and federal money. And the idea that we have a CSA 1, we're not going to give you any service, but we want to charge you for administration. That's bull manure. And I would like to use other adjectives. But I would like to request that you do put on the agenda and look into it, because that is despicable, shameful, and shabby, what's been going with CSA 1. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments?
Good morning. My name is George Fry. Board members, I have a book here. It's called Patton's Principles. I don't know if you know who General Patton was, but he was one of 2 Allied commanders in World War II in Europe. The other one was Eisenhower. I'm a big-time history buff, and more so military history. In 1979, Porter Williamson wrote this book, Patent's Principles. I look at it from time to time. As you can see, it's old and worn. And my suggestion is that you can go on Amazon.com. I went on there the other day to look and see what it might cost you to order it. And it runs anywhere from $4 to $6.50 plus shipping, which is $3.99. So I would encourage you to at least order it and look at it and read some of the information that's in there. It's pretty amazing, really it is. It's the first area, chapter 1, it has to do with introduction. It says, we can always learn from each other. And I mean, that's a really powerful statement. And, I just finished reading 700 pages of General Douglas MacArthur and his whole life, his time in the Philippines, and his statement about, I shall return, that he said to the Filipino people. My wife's father was on the death march of Bataan. He survived it. Anybody that fell down, the Japanese bayoneted him, and they were obviously dead. And Filipino people love that man to this day. So several years ago, I got up here when there was a whole different board, and I talked about governance. I would like for all of you, and I'm not being a smart aleck about it, but I would really like for you to go and look up the word governance. I didn't get a chance to look at the tape until last night. I left at noon last Tuesday because I couldn't take any more of it. You talk about a lack of governance. It was despicable to me. That's my own opinion. And then what I saw on the tape with the committees, that was just totally deplorable. Just totally deplorable. And when you're conducting a meeting here as board members who represent the public in this county, and I watch the body language of all the members of the board, who's paying attention while somebody's speaking, all of that kind of stuff. And I want to tell you, no disrespect to some board members, but there are a couple of board members that really understand governance. We all know who those people are, and we all know who the people are that don't understand governance.
30 seconds.
What I saw was what was the lesser of two evils that happened last week. And what was interesting to me is when we took a break, I came up to the area, said hi to Supervisor Ponte, said hi to Supervisor Oliveira, I said hi to Supervisor Kearney. I didn't get an opportunity to say hi to Supervisor Wright or Supervisor Edson. And one of those supervisors I said hi to didn't even acknowledge me. It was like, I'm a sensitive person, I really am. And it was like they stabbed me in the heart. And they're all our representatives. And I think what I heard was that Gary Tofanelli took out papers last Thursday. And the word on the street is, who is the lesser of two evils? Is it Cliff Edson or is it Gary Tofanelli? So that might be food for thought. But I have to say once again, the way some members on this board treat Supervisor Ponte is deplorable, totally deplorable. When I saw that part about the committees, it just absolutely blew my mind.
Okay,
This
George.
lady
George?
knows governance.
Excuse me, George.
Yeah.
Time's up.
8 years as the mayor of the city of Angels Camp. She knows governance.
Okay. Any other public comments?
Good morning, Board. Bill McManus from the Calaveras Project. Just had some information. Of course, always like to give you information. I know you take care of it very carefully. As far as the issue of pot and 266, it's my information, I'm sure County Council's aware of it, that the C4 clause is in the process of being either modified or eliminated. It came up under Assembly Bill 21, which passed the State Assembly and is supposed to be going to the Senate tomorrow for approval and then on to the governor's desk for a signature. So don't know exactly what the language of it was, but it seems to be going away. Another item of interest out of Sacramento, and I believe I have the number right, is AB 26, which appears to be a growing trend in Sacramento to attempt to limit the authority of cities and counties throughout California. I haven't had a chance to talk with our legislative analyst about it, but it's something that we're going to be keeping track of, and if there's something dangerous there, I'll bring it to your attention. I'm sure County Council will be way ahead of me on that. As far as other news, all up and down the state, cities and counties have been moving to address the AB 266 or marijuana issue in their jurisdictions. There seems to be an overwhelming urge for counties and cities who have never touched it to get it done, and also for cities and counties that have had ordinances in place for many years, in some cases up to 15 years, to re-examine their ordinances and see how it fits into the trifecta of horror, otherwise known as AB 266. So a lot of communities have been getting together, reviewing their ordinances or passing ordinances for the first time. Locally, the City of Angels Camp is on the verge of banning all marijuana activity within that jurisdiction. As reported in yesterday's version of the Stockton Record, every city in San Joaquin County, in addition to the county itself, has banned marijuana activities, citing crime and public nuisance as the major reason. These include Stockton, Ripon, Lodi, and Manteca. Also last night, I got an email from the sheriff of Stanislaus County, Sheriff Christensen, and as we speak right now, Stanislaus County is in the process of banning all marijuana activities within the unincorporated area of Stanislaus County. Also on board is Tuolumne County, which will be moving in a direction to ban large grows, either outdoors or indoors, and go with a 6-plant limit. Don't know exactly how that's going to go over in Tuolumne County, but that seems to be what they're looking at, and they also have some very stringent controls for access, safety, and security for whatever goes on there. As an overview of all the actions of the cities and counties up and down the state, it seems that indoor and outdoor growing, large grows, are not surviving anywhere. They tend to be too much trouble. They create too much crime. Counties have a hard time ramping up with enforcement to monitor it. It's hard to distinguish legal grows from illegal grows. We've lived through that horror this past year, and they're just getting rid of it altogether. Others have gone with the small grows, which are 6 plants or less, to accommodate those who feel that marijuana has some medicinal value for them. Those are grows that aren't going to reach across the state lines of California and start moving throughout the country as the large grows do. The Calaveras marijuana cartel, by its own admission, is growing over $100 million worth of marijuana. I can tell you right now, it's not being smoked in Calaveras County. It's going somewhere, and that violates SB 420.
30 seconds.
So anyway, the sense that I get, and yours might be quite different, is that cities and counties want to minimize the footprint of marijuana within their communities such that they can monitor it, they control it, and it won't become a source of criminal activity and public nuisance. So it's just something that I thought I'd bring to your attention, and as things develop, I'll be back. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, any other public comments?
Good morning, Marty Crane, Valley Springs area. This is probably the most difficult thing I've ever had to do, and I've been coming to these meetings since 2002. The only one I've only missed 2, and one of them was this last week, and I watched it on TV. I cannot bring myself to watch it again. That's how bad it was. So the last meeting, for someone who, like myself, who is still optimistic about the prospect of having a representative government, I found this extremely disheartening. Over the years, we've seen these same antics and blatant disregard for process that only seem to be embraced when, where you only seem to embrace the concept of process, which, by the way, is what protects the participation of the public, when you're forced to do so or when the outcome seems to be predetermined. I encourage everyone, every single person in Calaveras County, to watch the first meeting of 2006 from the beginning to the end. We have a fractured and dysfunctional board. You will be able to see that clearly and easily on the video. It's not something that started just last week. This has been in the making, with caution flags being raised here and there all over the place. Now I'm looking at red flags. This is not the product of effective, inclusive leadership. It is my hope that you will revisit your recent decisions and make decisions that in the future you can look back on and say, I did the right thing. I'm proud of myself. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments? All right, we'll go to our regular agenda. So, regular agenda, Administrative Office received the 2015 Annual Report of the Calaveras County Fish and Game Commission.
This is the annual report normally submitted by the Fish and Game Commission. I don't believe there's anybody here representing Fish and Game, but I do believe that Supervisor Wright is the board rep at that meeting, so I don't know if he would like to make any comments on the report. But basically, it is the annual report that the commission submits to the Board of Supervisors.
It's a good report. Okay. Public comments?
Somebody bring up to date, I'm Peter Race from Channel N, up to date, how much, where, what, why is the Fish and Game organization is doing. Good, bad, the ugly, whatever it is doing something, so it would be nice to be educated a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah, the report's right there, Peter, in the staff report. The report's in the documents.
Okay, now that everybody has it, I mean, does it cost any money or is it all volunteers? The taxpayers' money? Grant, federal, state?
Could you stand up at the
Who's
podium?
doing what, sir?
Stand up.
He's the knowledgeable one, right?
Yeah, but you're still talking.
Thank you.
With George Fry, with the advent of this Fish and Game report, the only question I have is that a year ago, the Fish and Game Commission approved changes in the bylaws, and they didn't have a quorum to do that, and they went ahead and did it anyway. Is that information in the Fish and Game report? I looked into it,
That
and
was the
in
last,
fact,
that was the last year.
say again?
That was the previous year.
Yeah, but I just wanted to alert the public that changes can't be made to any bylaws without a quorum of the people on the board or commission. And so I'm not so sure, county council can correct me, but I don't think those bylaws are any good because there wasn't a quorum in order to vote on those bylaws. I looked into it, and there was not a quorum. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments?
And if I could, I can answer quickly. The commissioners that serve on the board of the Fish and Game Commission do not receive any stipend or mileage or any compensation. The money that they have available to spend for their different activities comes through fines. Fines.
Do they have a fining power?
They don't, but the state does, and a portion of the fines collected by the state filter down to the county, to the Fish and Game Commission,
Through the courts.
through the courts.
Okay. Any board comments?
Yeah, it's the first I've heard of a bylaw change. Is that accurate? Anybody have any?
Didn't happen the year, it didn't happen when I was on it this last year.
I don't know, this is the first that I've heard of it, so certainly we will look into the action and find out what happened.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other board comments?
No.
All right. We have, all right, so we'll go on to next item. Our update on Butte Fire recovery.
Good morning, Brian Moss, Administrative Office. For our report, from our perspective only, is the local hazard mitigation plan that the Board of Supervisors adopted on November 10th of 2015. We're quickly coming up on our 90-day time frame, and the board directed at that time that any changes be brought back before the board before that 90-day time frame was up. So with that said, we are planning on bringing this back to the board, the minor changes, and they are minor, to the board at your next meeting.
Okay. Who's next for?
Jeff Krovitz, Public Works. I don't have a lot of updates other than to say that we seem to be staying in front of the storms, keeping the roads open, keeping the snow plowed to meet our missions, progressing with developing some information for a community meeting planned in Mountain Ranch for rebuilding, and that's a multi-department effort. Let's see what else I got. I think that's about it. The board have any questions for me?
No, everything seems to be moving along pretty good.
Weather pending. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, weather pending.
Good morning. Charlie Simpson with Cal OES. I don't have a lot to report either this morning. Things are progressing. I do have the latest manufactured housing unit counts. 11 have been occupied, 25 are assigned and pending the final installation and occupation. 9 of those are on the private sites that were within the burn area itself. And they have a total of 33 pads leased. So at this point, it appears that they do have enough capacity to take care of the people that are eligible for the MHUs. Other than that, any questions of me this morning?
No, that's good. I went up to Lewis Avenue and checked out what's going on up there. They're moving right along, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
And the only information I want to relay to the board that regarding the RCRC grant, I have a meeting Friday with the Case Management Committee of Calaveras Recovers to go over an application process so that we can bring that back to the board for approval on the 26th.
Kevin Rydak, Commissioner. Just a quick note. There is some grass coming back up in the burn area at present. And the ranchers are starting to put their fences back up, but it's going to take a year for them to probably get their fence posts and everything realigned in the bed areas of the burn. So this year, the grazing up in that area is going to be somewhat problematic. Thank you. Any questions?
No, thank you. Anybody else? Yeah.
Joe Kelly, still from the unrepresented area of District 1. County close to disappearing. Ms. Hawkins stated unknown financial status due to Butte fire. When are we going to get answers? You brought it up. I'm asking, when do we get answers? Mr. Edson, on this number 3 administrative office, says board chair. Department heads, Cal OES, and FEMA update on Butte fire recovery. Where's your report? If you're doing what you said in last week's meeting and you're out there, where's your reports? Whether you're the OES or just the board chair, it's time to do the job 100%. If you're going to go out there and cause the headaches for Mr. Wright and cause the cabal, then you need to be accountable. We need to know what you're doing and why you're making these statements during a meeting and then walking away from it. Trying to put fear in everybody that a new taxation's going to come down, or what? And how is this coordination with all the other agencies going? Is it all working out? Somebody just pointed out to me that there could have been Red Cross and others that could have put things in place that I believe there's a bill on the county now for about $150,000. So where was all this camaraderie and exchange of information and finding out who can do what? Or was it just a bull in the brush running through? And I would ask again, as presiding officer, are you sitting or being representative as the OES chief or not? And if you are, why can't that position be changed to an appointed person to go out and do the job like Clay Hawkins used to do every time? And by the way, when it was over, he did his reports back to the board publicly. We knew what was going on. Thank you.
You want to answer that?
Which part?
The part who is the OES chief.
Per county ordinance, the Director of Emergency Services and the head of the Disaster Council is the chair of the board.
And so, as far as the OES director goes?
OES is a department under the Sheriff's Department. Currently, it is manned by Lieutenant, a Sergeant, and a Sheriff's Service Tech. Lieutenant Huberty, Sergeant Wade Whitney, and Sherry Munson.
Right, and Clay Hawkins is also sitting in on, or is a part of this too, by the way.
We developed an incident command structure, and Clay Hawkins has come back as extra hire overseeing operations.
Okay.
Rosemary Wilson, I had a question or a request for Shirley, and that is when the money, the funds, the 150,000 from the RCRC, yeah, when they are distributed, can it be with the requirement that there is a reporting of what is actually done with the money, which is, pretty commonplace for when grants are handed out?
Most definitely. We have to keep track of how the money is spent and report back to RCRC, and we will also provide that same report to the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. I had a question that only came into my mind as I went up in the pouring rain after last week's meeting to my property, and there's nothing worse. I thought I had seen the worst when I first came back to see the property, but there's nothing like seeing it in the pouring rain. And I just got thinking that is it not the case that with the rain that there will be a certain amount of obnoxious chemicals and elements leaching into the surface of the land that would be more difficult to remove them before the rains, when we were only dealing with, essentially with the debris removal on top of the land? And is that being reflected in the sample test results that are coming back? Just a point. I wish I'd thought of it a month or two ago, but that's what I thought. I also have another observation for the Twitter feed for Calaveras fire recovery or Butte fire recovery that is being put out with the county seal on it. There is some good information that's going out. There's also some tweets that I don't know if they're designed for a tease. It certainly seems that way. That there, since about January the 4th, there have been 3, maybe 4 tweets that say things like, watch this space. Another one that says, coming soon, watch this space. It's really not going to be long, and we're going to have news. Well, for someone sitting in bed looking at these tweets late at night, having lost your principal residence, I just wish that if the county has something to say, that they would say it, and if they're not ready to say it, then they should wait until they are. Having a bunch of tweets that say coming soon to an area near you doesn't really do much for those people that are actually living the aftermath. They're not working to represent the county on the aftermath. They're actually living with it. So that was a comment that I wanted to pass on to you. And I see that Chris is nodding as if he may have already heard about these or even seen the official county tweets. Thank you. Oh, the problem is, posting a whole bunch of teasing messages is likely to put off people from taking that site and future tweets from the county seriously. They may just say, I can't be bothered to waste my time looking at these things, so that when you do have something to say, are people really going to take it seriously or not? Thank you.
Maybe I can address a couple of those questions for the board and for the audience. I think that what is being spoken of, and I can't be sure, is the Rebuilding Calaveras, A New Beginning, which is an event that's going to be happening in Mountain Ranch at the Community Club on Friday, January 22nd, from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And that is going to have representatives from everybody from the Contractor State License Board to our local hardware stores on answering questions on how to rebuild and what's available to the community. So I'm not sure that that's what the tweets are about, but if that is what it is about, that is indeed the issue. Again, Rebuilding Calaveras, A New Beginning. So the other issue that was brought up was the hazardous materials leaching into the soil. Really good point. That's part and parcel of the entire cleanup program that the board's well aware of. Where do we have our primary concerns in a burn area? Not necessarily on the open rangeland, but on the areas and in the areas where we had structures. What are we looking at there? And not to go too far into the science, but the reality is we're looking for asbestos, we're looking for lead-based paints, we're looking for other chemicals that may have been stored in an area. And part of the cleanup process is for, as you know, clean closure of each individual site where we had a structure, and that is part of the testing as far as what remains on site. When they do a hazmat screen or testing, if you will, that's taken to the lab. If for some reason they still have what we call a detect on, let's say, mercury as an example, they will come back and they will remove additional soil. So I hope that that answers that question. Thank you.
Yeah, so the one of the issues on that whole situation is that the labs are taking extra long. You know, we were told by Jason it was going to be like 3 to 5 days. It's taken approximately 3 weeks. They discussed it with Jason. He's actually talked to the folks and switched labs to try to speed it up a little bit. Then they get overwhelmed, and so my last conversation with him was, well, can we use multiple labs then? Try to get some of these soil samples back quicker, so that we can get the property owners back on their properties quicker. The other issue that I heard is going on up there right now is there have been layoffs with some of the contractors, and I'm a little concerned about that. I asked for the reasons why that's happening, and I haven't gotten an answer yet, but I thought it's been brought to me numerous times by numerous people, and I'm concerned about that because I don't want the process to slow down. We need to get this done. We need to get people's properties cleaned and back on, and so they can get back onto their properties to rebuild. So I'm expecting some kind of answer here pretty quick on what's going on there. I don't know the extent of it. I know that it has slowed it down for Sundays. I know that for a fact. But so I guess we'll be getting a report on that, and then we can report out on it. Other than that, besides the rain, they were hauling in the rain. They had 19 crews. Even this last rain, there's been 19 crews out there working. And, you know, and the other complaint I've been getting a lot is the truck drivers, the way they're driving. They hold safety meetings weekly, and they make it very clear that you know, about being safe. So the other thing to consider is on a day like this, there's about 230 trucks moving every single day. And really, there's been very few complaints about that, except for, you know, a few people complaining about the safety. And, you know, if the drivers are safe, we're good. We've been pretty fortunate so far. The one thing that is taking a beating is the roads in some of the areas. So there's a lot of potholes and things that are, you know, being, because of the amount of, it's not just the cleanup crews, but it's also the tree crews, it's the PG&E crews, and it's the telephone folks, and then all of the contracting and everything else that's going on. If there's way more traffic than just the cleanup trucks. So, and I believe that there is a plan. It's being talked about how we're going to deal with that. So, I get calls every single day on many issues. Some of the issues that I've been called on are, what fees can the county charge for permit fees, because of the declaration, or the emergency declaration that the governor made. And so they're getting that squared away now. And so that so the folks don't get charged for what they don't need to get charged for. It's really important. We need that the rebuild to happen as easily as possible for these folks. A lot of them are, their insurances aren't going to cover everything if we keep stacking, you know, stuff on. So we want to be able to get them back up there. And so it's one of those ongoing things that we're working on. And I know that there's criteria around it. And like everything else, it just takes a little while to get it honed in so that we can get all of the right information. I know Megan's been working on it too, so that we can get all the information out where we need it, so that we can, you know, the process is clear for everybody, because right now it isn't. Well, we haven't been through this before, so I can see why. So, and I will take any questions from anybody that wants to call me or contact me. I have been all along. I'm averaging probably maybe 100 emails a day, at least 30 or 40 phone calls before noon. So, and I respond as quickly as I can, pass them off as much as I can, and, you know, to folks that can actually help them out, because the goal is to make sure that the unmet needs are met, and that's what we're after. So.
Mr. Chairman, it's good to be loved.
Oh, yeah. I can feel it.
I want to express a concern. Maybe I'm totally wrong, and hope I am, but it came to my attention that for independent truckers to take the test or class, or what you want to call it, for the hazmat movement, they are required to pay a union due before they're allowed to do it. Now, I'm from Chicago. I spent a few years in Chicago. They used to call it protection money, shakedown, whatever you want to call it. Hopefully it's not happening, but independent truckers are required to pay a certain amount of dues for the ability to take the test to do the job. Now, wonderful. If they want to contribute, whoever organization they want to contribute, that's their business. But it does affect the people who are in need and an unfortunate situation. Because that independent trucker, if he's got to pay to do a job, he's not going to eat it. He's going to pass it on to your constituents. I want to make sure that if there's a shakedown, is it legal? Who knows about it? Is there anything going to be done about it? Or maybe it's just somebody's fantasy. Is there a shakedown in this county for independent truckers to be able to do the job and help out this community or not? I would like to, somebody give me a definite yes or no. I don't know who's in charge of it. It goes through FEMA, I believe. It's not a county issue or the feds running this class of verification or certification, but it is happening in this county. And if it is happening, it's happening to your constituents. I would like to know definitely, is there a shakedown, protection money from any organized labor or not? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think I can provide some information. The state law and federal law requiring hazmat operations has to be regulated for cleanup as far as certification for every person in there. That's the OSHA laws for employees, things of that sort. The fee I think you're talking about is a certification for a truck driver to operate in a hazmat recognized area. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about the additional fee that the union required them to pay for the opportunity to take this education or certification. That's what I'm talking about, above and beyond.
I'm unaware of any fee like that.
Okay.
I guess our environmental health representative is not available to answer that.
Yeah, Jason is the one that's pretty much managing all of that, so he would be the one to ask on it.
Because what I asked is some people,
Yeah,
there
they're
are
charging
people
truck
aware of it.
drivers.
Yes, folks, in official
To
business.
work in a hazmat area, is that the
Yes,
fee
sir.
you're talking? Yeah.
Yes, so they can move the truck.
Well, maybe Mr. Moss can provide some information for that.
Everything.
Thank God.
Brian Moss again with the Administrative Office. The course that is being discussed is called the HAZWOPER course. It's a 40-hour course. It was provided to the people that are actually doing the debris removal at a much reduced rate. I don't know what that is, and it was provided, I believe, through Cal EPA, the training. So that's actually been a real benefit to the community and our private truckers. Now, as far as additional costs and levies, I'm not familiar with that. I'm not even sure if Jason Shop would be as well, but I can speak to you about the HAZWOPER course, and essentially that's what Supervisor Oliveira was referring to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What about the one I'm referring to? Is there any other financial?
That one I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, you hear a lot of things until it's substantiated and you run them down, then, we can't, I mean, how can you respond to something that is not substantiated? Go ahead, Debbie.
In reference to that, I think early on there was some discussion about additional union fees for this line of work. Jason, I know, and I had a discussion about it. It was brought to my attention early on. I think he's worked it out. I think for clarity and to get the right answer, perhaps at the next meeting, we can have Jason specifically address this, because I know it's been discussed and he's worked on it. And I don't want to comment if it's a fee that's being charged or not, because I was told something and I don't want to repeat misinformation. So I would suggest that Jason perhaps report back to us at our next meeting.
Yeah, so it's like, we hear things and then a little time goes on. They change, because Jason is constantly working with these folks, working things out. And so it's a good question to ask. And, so when he gets back, we can ask him that.
Good morning, Mark Bolger, Mountain Ranch. As an owner of a 26-acre parcel and a 20-acre parcel that were severely burnt in the fire, I can say that the cleanup crews have done an amazing job. Where my structure and shop were have been cleaned up. I just received a phone call yesterday that the site has been cleared for testing. I believe they're going to start on erosion control fairly soon, so everyone's doing a bang-up job in my opinion. My question / what I would encourage the board to do, the representative from PG&E that was talking about their willingness to help with erosion control, I would really encourage the board to pursue that option. As someone that doesn't personally feel that litigation with PG&E is the correct course of action for my personal property, I would be interested in seeing some type of reimbursement program or cost sharing. Contractors have quoted me in the tens of thousands of dollars to do cleanup on my parcels, between dozer work, erosion control. I think there's going to be significant costs that property owners are going to be bearing from this, and I would be definitely interested in seeing what PG&E would be willing to work with us on. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, any other comments on the Butte Fire recovery report out?
I just wanted to give a quick update from what was sent out to us by Environmental Health a couple days ago. As far as the number of debris removal teams out there, 29 active, hazmat suite properties that are cleared, 815, properties cleared of all debris removed, 296, right of entry forms submitted, 809, number of properties with documented pre-debris reports, 778, and number of properties certified clean, that means the soil samples are cleared, is 174. So, even during the storms, they're still out there, and judging by these numbers, things are still moving along. Even though I know for a lot of folks, it's still painfully slow if you're waiting for your property to be cleaned up. So, I just encourage everybody to hang in there and realize that there's a lot of people out there working hard.
And the maps that Jason has in his office were posted in quite a few different places on Facebook and other areas, so that people can get an idea where it is and where it's going. It's pretty hard to determine, a timeline, because an example was just the other day, I think it was Saturday, they did a property that took 55 truckloads, one property. So that takes a little while, and then there are some properties that may just be 1 or 2 truckloads, because maybe it was just a tank or well house or something that had, some solar power and some batteries and things like that melted. They can get it all up in one load. So it's pretty hard to determine, and I have this conversation almost every day with somebody. It's really hard for me to talk to folks, knowing that they're without their property. They're struggling, staying in other places, and they want to get up on their place, and I can't blame them. But somebody has to be first, and somebody had to be first, and somebody's got to be last. I mean, there's just no way around that unless we can scoop it up all at once from the sky. I feel that our environmental health department has managed it very well. I think that they put a plan in place to consider many different things, including caretakers and FEMA and the prioritizing for some of the crews, and they're, in my mind, moving pretty fast, because like you could go look at the Valley Fire results. Well, heck, they had 200 or 300 homes in one square block, or just in a very small area, where they can just go in there and scoop them all up at once. Here, they're battling a lot of different challenges. Roads. Some of the places didn't have very good roads at all, and also the sheer area itself and the remoteness of it for just getting in there and moving from one place to the other even takes time. So I'm a little surprised to hear, that's why I questioned the layoffs, because before the storm last week, we had 32 crews, and now we have 29. So I'm concerned about that. I know Jason's looking into it. I talked to him about it a couple of days ago, and so he's looking into it. One thing about, I just wanted to tell you something about Jason. He answers his calls on Sunday. He is very, very good, and we're lucky to have him. So anyhow, I know the crews I've met with, they have a lot of local folks that work with them too. Met with a lot of them, and the goal is to try to keep as many local people working as possible with these crews. So I am concerned, a little bit concerned about the layoffs, and we'll get to the bottom of it. Okay. George?
George Fry. My question has to do with all of the trees, all of these properties that need to be removed, or ones that are down or what have you. Do you have some program where they can be cut up, and elderly folks could get the wood to heat their fireplaces or stoves during these winter months that really are on fixed incomes and really can't afford to buy wood?
Jeff?
Jeff Krovitz, Public Works. The timber that's been removed along the roadways since the beginning of the fire has been stored up in the yard here on the campus, and we've made that available to seniors who wish to come and get it and coordinate that through the road department.
Hey, what about specifically about private property, when people are cutting up wood and things like that? I know there's some rules around it.
In a post-fire, if the intent of the owner is to do logging for commercial basis, there are emergency logging permits, timber harvest plans that are foreshortened and at reduced cost, and that's on the CAL FIRE website. If it's non-commercial use or non-trade use for the removal or the off-haul of lumber, I don't believe there's permits required.
Okay.
Did I answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Peter Maurer, Planning Director. We're also working on a temporary use permit to utilize a site up in Wilseyville for removal of, or the trees have been removed along the PG&E power lines to shred the wood and use it for erosion stabilization. We have a meeting this afternoon with the project proponent and other departments to talk about that, and hopefully we'll be able to issue a temporary use permit under the urgency ordinance provisions soon. So that's what we're working on as well.
I appreciate what the Director of Public Works is saying, but elderly people, it's pretty difficult for them to go there and pick up wood and what have you. Maybe it's time for community organizations like the American Legion, the VFW, the Lions Club, those kind of community organizations to organize themselves and cut up the wood. And I mean, there's buku pickup trucks around here, so that's not a problem. And maybe we can run an ad in the newspaper or word of mouth or something like that, because I know that, it's just really expensive. When you look at the ads for a cord of wood nowadays, especially oak, it's well over $300 a cord. So I'm just, I'm out there in the community all the time listening to people saying they can't afford the wood, to purchase the wood. And so I was just thinking out loud here and seeing if there wasn't some way we could organize something. And maybe I need to talk to the Director of Public Works and see if we can come up with something.
Actually, George, the JPA 12 Area Agency on Aging has a program called the CHORE program. And if you can identify a particular person, what we probably need to do is work with Common Ground and find a qualified vendor that can cut it up for them. Because a particular person could say they need wood like you're running into, and a cord of wood would fall below it would qualify, in other words, what I'm getting at. So
Yeah.
If you need help, contact me and we'll bridge that gap. And,
Yeah, well, I figured I'd bring it up at the Area 12 agency at our next board meeting in February, but I just thought if we could get going on it sooner, that it would be in the best interest of those folks that really need it. And I figured it would be something that Common Ground would focus in on.
Maybe we can get a vendor going fairly promptly. I know there are, when you're dealing with something like that, you can't just get somebody to cut and split wood. They have to be insured, et cetera, and actually be a business that does it.
No, I understand.
But the CHORE program, under $500 to a particular senior citizen would fall below that for a cord of wood. So,
yeah.
Especially if we've got the deck is sitting out here, and I have seen that.
Yeah. I'm just not so sure that we have it in this county. I believe it's in Amador County, and that's part of what we all have been working on in terms of getting
bring those services here.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe this is a good time to springboard on that. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, George.
Good morning. Al Segala, Calaveras County Taxpayer Association. There may be some opportunities to not have this happen again, and our group would be most interested in helping create a white paper or a report which would look at the 3 different phases. One is is fire prevention, fire suppression, and recovery. In each of those areas, there's experts among us, and some of them may be fire victims that have seen things that could have been done better. And if we were to have such an honest report that's not there to cover anything up or protect anybody, nothing like that, and also not attack people, but to look at what could have been done to prevent this from happening to begin with. That sort of approach could really pay off in the future. In the area of fire prevention, where there's 2 things, of course, is apparently this fire was started in PG&E's contact with some trees. But in prevention, you also have the area that needs to be cleared around homes. And also there's been some discussion about ways to make homes more fireproof. One of them is of course, have metal roofs. There may be some chemicals that could be used to preserve existing roofs or make it more fire resistant. And there may be some things could be done with paint. All of this can really pay off in the future in our next fire. Now, in the area of fire suppression, a lot of this has to do with communication, coordination between different government bodies that need to coordinate, and also they need to move fast with sufficient amount of personnel and equipment to put the fire out quickly. We probably realize now that that wasn't done. So that needs to be part of this report too, is what could be done in the future to get on these fires quicker and suppress them before they get out of hand. And of course the third area, which we're in now, is recovery. From our taxpayers group, we think that the most important thing are the property owners who who have been harmed by this fire. And so there could be suggestions that we learn from this experience going forward that we'd be better prepared in recovery if we have the shared knowledge. So anybody that's an expert in this area, there's a number of people, the Taxpayer Association can do what it can to help bring about such a white paper. And we also want to thank all the Board of Supervisors for the great work you're doing. And also, Chris Wright has got a tremendous amount of knowledge because he's right in the thick of it. And I think he can make quite a contribution to finding some solutions for the future. Thank you.
George brought up an interesting topic that triggered an experience that I had about 8 years ago with the road department. The road department went on private property on Double Springs because there was a downed tree in the corral. I had been watering the cattle on this property and was expecting the downed tree to be made into firewood for my use. When I asked the road department crew what they were doing with the firewood, that I was told it's being donated to the senior wood giveaway program. I said, well, I'm a senior. I live right down the road. Leave a load on my driveway. Of course they didn't. They told me they were taking it to their yards. Now I'm hearing the extra firewood is going to county yards. There was no senior wood giveaway program. Those individuals were triple dipping as far as I'm concerned. There was no authorization for them to cut the firewood, and there was no senior wood giveaway program. Those people were taking the wood home for their own use. I checked with the office and public, or with the road department, whoever's in charge of that, and they said, gee, there is no wood giveaway program. Well, by that time, the wood was all gone. So I'm wondering, is anybody keeping their eye on these people that are working for the county, checking their trucks when they go home? Are they taking the wood with them? I wouldn't put it past them. I think if there's really an intent to distribute wood in a manner that will benefit seniors or people that are low income, there should be a monitoring of the wood that's being stored there. Thank you.
Just one additional comment with regard to the wood thing. I'll talk to the Public Works Director, but there's no reason why we couldn't use the prisoners that are out at 6 Mile and have them, they do a lot of cutting down trees and cleaning up and what have you, and having them come and cut up all the wood and split it and what have you, and get a program in place, tied, like you said, Steve, with common ground, and get this thing moving, because we're going to have a lot of wood.
Ed Ballard with the Sheriff's Office. I just want to echo what George was saying there. If you remember a long time ago when we cleared off the property up there for the projects, we had the inmates, I think it turned out to be about 230 cords that we donated to senior citizens, low income, and church people. And what, on that, obviously we monitored the wood. I had sheets that, they had to sign that saying that, that they were with the church or the senior citizen, or the senior center. I had a contact over there, and she would call me and tell me that this person is going to come get wood, or they're going to have this person come and get wood. And it was pretty effective. It worked well. And, not only that, I've got a few inmates up there that could be out there splitting wood. They've done it one time, they can do it again.
Okay. All right. Any other public comments? Board comments?
No.
Okay. I've been...
Question, Chair. Question for Captain Ballard. You mentioned that we can have our inmate population actually start doing those activities again. There's no state regulations that we can actually do that on the county.
As long as it's here on county property and they're supervised, and they're, they have to go through a safety meeting every day. They have to be trained in what tools to use and all that. As long as we do that, we're good.
And our only resources that we would have to commit to that would be, of course, the supervision and the security when they're on county property, but out of an in-custody situation, correct?
Yeah, they'll be out of the jail.
Okay.
But there'd be a correctional officer that would be there watching them. Depending on the level of inmate, I could have sheriff's office volunteers watch them. And, that's even a reduced cost to the county, and I've done that before too.
Okay, thank you, Captain.
Okay.
Okay, so I've been requested to take a 5-minute break. All right, so we're on agenda item 4, which is Public Works. Adopt a resolution to increase fiscal year 2015-16 Public Works Transit final budget revenue and expenses by $9,304, requiring 4/5 vote from the Board of Supervisors for approval.
This is a budget balancing item, attempting to budget or balance line items that went either upward or downward within the transit budget. We're planning on or proposing to fund it out of LTF funds, which are available. One item of note is that there is a repayment here to the CCOG. They had forwarded funds during the bus shelter project. The bus shelter project came in under budget, and therefore not all the funds that were forwarded are needed. And this item also contains a repayment. Questions?
I'm here.
Could you explain for an excessive reimbursement, explain that one more time for me?
We had a budget for the bus shelter capital project.
Okay, the shelter project.
Shelter project. We were forwarded funds by COG to help pay for that. The project came in under budget, and this is a reimbursement of the overpayment.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure the public heard that.
Any other questions?
Yes. I see we have an explanation in our board packet that we had a delay in providing a service to Stockton. What was that delay?
I think it was a couple of things. One was obtaining the bus. It required the purchase of a bus, and it takes the manufacturers a while to get those ready. And the second part was researching routes and stops and then negotiating agreements within City of Stockton for the use of their facilities as our bus stop.
So do we miss our little timeline, target dates on those when we started putting those programs together? So we're on schedule.
We're on this schedule. We were hoping to have it later in the fall, but we weren't able to make that.
Okay, all right, that was just my question. Okay. And our personnel costs were increased. What were those personnel costs?
So at the beginning of the year, we have what's called the budgeted employee cost spreadsheet that we get from administration. I guess when we plugged in those numbers somewhere in some point, they were less than what Deborah's actual costs are. So we're increasing each of those line items just a little bit. I think they're not huge differences. Got my spreadsheet here. So it's just one employee, it's just Deborah Mullen. And if you look at the spreadsheet, so the salaries were budgeted $11,960 less than what she actually makes. $2,000 for the PERS, $174 for Medicare, and $46 for disability. So we have to adjust those to make sure we can pay her salary for the whole year.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, we do. Yeah. All right. Public comments? None? Okay. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Okay. I have a motion by Supervisor Kearney. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Olivera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. Public Works, approve a resolution accepting as complete all road improvements and authorizing the release of security for Olive Orchard Estates subdivision, tract 2003.157.
Jeff Krovitz, Public Works. This is a subdivision that was approved back in 2004. And there was a developer agreement for some off-site roadway improvements that were bonded against to allow for the subdivider to record the final map. After a number of the lots have been sold and a number of off-site improvements have been made, developer came back to Public Works requesting removal of one of the some of the road improvement requirements. Public Works required the developer to produce a traffic study that justified the removal of these improvements. The traffic study was reviewed and it was found, we agreed that the anticipated impacts were not as intense as we had thought and they could be removed. Developer then appealed for removal of this agreement through the Planning Commission, which was approved. There was an appeal that was not acted upon, and so we are in a position that with all other improvements being completed and this individual improvement no longer being necessary, we are obligated to return the bond security. Questions on this one?
No, not yet. Yeah, any public comments?
Joyce Tekel, I've owned and operated a business here for 40 years, and I've been a resident in Calaveras County, a very happy resident for that time. You are about to approve a resolution that accepts as complete all road improvements and authorizes the release of security for the Olive Orchard Estates subdivision, in spite of the fact that improvements to Olive Orchard Road, which were a condition of project approval, have not been done by the developer, Ryan Voorhees. You are effectively making a gift to Mr. Voorhees of taxpayer dollars. Citizens of Calaveras County have been concerned about the lack of funding for our roads for over 30 years. In the 1980s, the concerned citizens sued the county over roads. In the 1990s, Phil Kane sued the county over lack of funding for Highway 26. And in 2004, I joined Phil in legal action over the lack of road impact mitigation fees after he had tried to get those fees in for 6 years. Developers should pay their fair share. The Public Works Department has the figures showing what it will take to get and keep our roads in the condition they need to be in to be safe, and the condition they need to be in to maintain road capacity as we grow. What good will this information do if the agreements with developers don't stand? The Regional Transportation Plan, the RTP, tells the county that it must have more local funding. Why would the people ever vote in necessary sales tax, gas taxes, or a transit occupancy tax before the county has gotten every legal dollar from developers and home builders first? And this is aside from emergency situations such as the Butte Fire. I understand that. I believe there are several reasons Angels Camp is effective in getting road funding. They have been seriously planning for years. They have shovel-ready projects. They are fully functional. The city has a transient occupancy tax. The city rim fees are higher than the county rim fees. They are building larger matching funds and are therefore more attractive to those doing the grant funding. There is bad funding news noted in the 2012 RTP, and the Calaveras Council of Governments has been forced to create 3 lists of projects. Number 1, those with likely funding in the near future. Number 2, those that may have funding eventually. And number 3, the list of projects that hardly have a hope in hell of ever being built. Number 3 appears to be the largest category to me. Supervisors continually talk about business growth and the economy. Why would a business come to a place with this quality of infrastructure? How much can we expect from these substandard roads? The warrants have been met on several of these roads, but have not been addressed because of a lack of funding. More development without increased fees will not begin to correct the situation. The draft general plan guiding principles, which have now been approved by the Board of Supervisors, state that development will pay the cost of providing infrastructure, including roads, but you fail to live up to that principle by relieving Mr. Voorhees of his obligation to fix Olive Orchard Road. The result is a betrayal of the public trust. The taxpayers of Calaveras County will now have to pay to build needed improvements to Olive Orchard Road. In 2004, Mr. Voorhees estimated the cost of those improvements at about $1 million, and I've included an article to document that information with the piece of paper I've given you. Due to inflation in the intervening years, the cost is likely higher now. The 2004 Valley Springs Benefit Basin Capital Projects cost estimate for the Olive Orchard Road Highway 26 left turn pocket is over $1 million. The Western Connector Project, a 6-mile-long road improvement project which includes Olive Orchard Road, cost nearly $13 million. The section of Olive Orchard Road, which was to have been improved by Voorhees, is over a mile long and would have contributed significantly to the needed Olive Orchard Road improvements in the benefit basin. Promises were made by Mr. Voorhees in order to get his project and map approved. Neighbors originally fought and opposed the Olive Orchard Road Estates development because of safety and traffic concerns about Olive Orchard Road. After the developer promised to improve Olive Orchard Road and its intersection with Highway 26, neighbors then accepted the project. Now, 10 years later, all of these promises have been broken, and you are a party to this betrayal. You do not have to throw out this road improvement requirement. You are choosing to do so. There has been a shell game played here, and the public is the loser.
Okay, any other public comments?
Good morning. Colleen Platt with MyValleySprings.com. The original Planning Commission vote to remove the developer requirement to improve Olive Orchard Road was a contentious and divided vote. This wasn't a 5-1 vote. It was a 3-2 vote with Commissioners McLaughlin and Commissioner Wooster opposed to this action. That Planning Commission action was then appealed by 6 different individuals. People felt that strongly about it. In September, there was a Board of Supervisors meeting to hear this appeal, and that was a tie vote. It was also a contentious meeting. It was 2-2 tie vote with 1 supervisor absent. Supervisor Ponte and Wright supported holding the developer to his promise to pay for road improvements. And we want to thank Supervisor Ponte and Supervisor Wright for that, for voting to protect the interests of Calaveras County taxpayers. The other 3 supervisors chose to let the Planning Commission decision stand, thus making a gift to the developer of millions of dollars of road improvements on the backs of the taxpayers, because this is who's going to end up having to pay for this. Olive Orchard Road is the top road improvement project in the Valley Springs Road Benefit Basin, and the county knows that this benefit basin is way underfunded, and that the 2004 program costs and the project lists have not been updated for 12 years. Calaveras County taxpayers will now be stuck with this multi-million-dollar bill for needed improvements to Olive Orchard Road and the Highway 26 intersection. Supporting this resolution is not a fiscally responsible position for you to take. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments?
Marty Crane, Valley Springs. As I've said before, I've been here many, many times, every meeting except 2 since 2002, and my only question is, did you actually hear what was just said? Are you going to pay attention? Are you going to think about it? We're the taxpayers. I know personally I can't afford to pay for all these road improvements, and the county as a whole cannot either. So, thank you.
Peter Ridge, gentlemen. If my memory serves me correctly, the last board had a gift from somebody by the name of Lundgren, who got departed from this county. At that time, there was a big thing that the road was improved at that time. In fact, I recall that how proud he was that that road improved, Olive Orchard Road, to have people ability to go by Olive Orchard to bypass downtown Valley Spring. Taxpayers paid for it. Federal money is still taxpayers' money. Of course, 2 weeks later, the same Mr. Lundgren came into the state, county state, and he was crying how come he was spending all this deficit money that they don't have. So he was talking out of both sides of his mouth. Now he's got an opportunity to keep his mouth shut because it was all bull manure. Olive Orchard Road was improved not that long ago from the previous board members through Lundgren to relieve the congestions downtown Valley Spring. So that road was improved. Yeah, I would love to have a signal light every corner. But you know how many people would be here bitching at you that the traffic was going slow? You know how many people should be bitching about it because Highway 26, 50 miles an hour at Jenny Lynn School, the state never had the money to do a feasible traffic count, and there were 6 incidents on average every year by Jenny Lynn School, 5 times re-engineered by the previous board. So let's get real, folks. And you're going to have a big cost coming up because these roads with these big trucks going up and down, that's the county's going to be paying. But it has nothing to do with that developer. There's not that many traffic going on from the residents along that road. I'm sure we can find a lot of things to pick on you for. But Caltrans and every other road authority, state and federal, there was no need for it, there was no call for it, there's no justification on it. So I like to see this county to be a place where people want to move to because it's reasonable and affordable. Whoever would pay for it, they're going to pass it on to the new buyers, and that would decrease the demand. Hopefully you consider that, make it every possible way, go out of your way to encourage people to moving up here and build up here, not be a deterrent. Thank you.
I come in rather late on some of these things, but my simple mind is telling me the people that originally purchased property in the Olive Orchard Estates probably had a concept of what the developer was going to do in that area. If that is not lived up to, I'm wondering if the developer, because I believe there's still land to be developed in that area, is going to be notifying all the people that live there that their roads will not be built to the specifications that they anticipated. And if new buyers are being told that the land will not be, the roads will not be developed sufficient to the previous promise. I'm not really quite sure who's on which side, but if you've got the ability to improve roads that won't be hit by the taxpayers, I think that is far preferable than allowing the majority of the taxpayers to have to make up for a broken promise.
Any other public comments?
Joe Kelly, while meandering around, I looked at University of California CEQA Handbook, Chapter 5.2. Mitigation measures become part of the final environmental document. Mitigation measures adopted as conditions of approval become part of the project and are legally binding. So does legally binding mean you have a contract? December 20th, 2004, Agenda 15, Mr. Voorhees further stated that the road issues were addressed and they have agreed to significant road impacts. June 19, 2007, Agenda 4, part of the agreement with the developer is that the Olive Orchard Road will be improved and a bond has been posted, pardon me. June 26, 2007, the required road improvements on Olive Orchard Road from the property, Highway 26, including the improvements on the bridge at that point. These are expected to be completed within 24 months. That's writings right out of that board meeting. My concern is what effect on the CEQA process is taking place with non-compliance. You start doing this, what's the purpose of CEQA? Because it goes through the CEQA process. I looked at that, but I didn't bother to write too much down about it, but it was interesting. I'm more concerned about what you're going to do. This also went through the State Clearinghouse in their newsletter of 2/16/28/2006 as 2006-028269. CRV Enterprises, substantial conformance and amendment to conditions request. So everything shows that there were conditions applied, and now if he pulls this off, I'm going to have to go find the man and shake his hand. Because he whooped the county, he and Mr. Opinski, a few years ago, on that land up there for what, $4 million that we didn't have? And now he's going to pull another $1 million out on a sly deal? Man, I got to hand it to him. He is a wily developer. I agree with what Joyce Teckel said. I think it's right. And my concern at this point is these conditions are a contract, and you folks are required to have a 4/5 vote on most of your contracts. So I would hope that somebody will express if it's a 4/5 vote, so we know what's going on, to comply with your contractual obligations. Thank you.
Seems that if the county doesn't insist on the improvements or the conditions of the contract, then seems like we're just asking to take on additional expense and responsibility and that we don't have the money to fund. If all of that gets out into the community, developers are sharp businessmen, and they're not going to be taking Calaveras County seriously, surely. They're going to be coming in and they're going to be looking for great deals. They're going to be agreeing to different terms and conditions, and then know that they stand a really good chance of wiggling their way out of it. And I don't think that the county is going to be putting its best foot forward by agreeing to developers doing a U-turn on what they had previously agreed to. I think you've got to have, you've got to make an agreement and see it through.
Public comments.
I was just going to clarify an issue. Are you not ready for me? This is,
Well, if there's no more public, that'd be great. Any public comments? Any other public comments? Okay, sorry.
no problem. Julie Moss Lewis, Deputy County Counsel, and just to clarify the issue today, this is really the issue today is, given the process that has already taken place, are we obligated to remove the bond? It's not legally on the table whether the propriety of what we did before, whether that was a good idea or a bad idea. The issue now is the obligation to remove the bond given what has already happened. And our advice is, under the circumstances, given that we have, the obligation has been removed, we believe that legally we do have an obligation to remove the bond. Just to try to prevent it going back to another policy determination.
Thank you. Okay. Board comments?
No, this was already debated at length.
All right.
I'll just, I think Joyce's letter was right on. Can't agree with that more, so, thank you.
Okay. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right. 3-2. All right. On to the next controversial subject. Number 6, Board of Supervisors has a direction of Board Chair. Discuss, provide direction regarding filling the vacancy in the Office of Sheriff. I know that we said 120 days when we discussed it last, and we're getting ready to get there. So I think it's really important that we just bring forward some of the things that have happened up until this point, and maybe put some ideas out there so that when, and it's up to the board if we want to do it now or then, when it comes time for us to make that decision, that we have it vetted out completely, because this is likely to be a pretty heated issue. So I brought it, I chose to bring it in a little early. I wanted to inform the public that under no circumstances can we have an election. We've tried everything possible. Megan already made that clear from get-go. Being the inquisitive people that, or at least that I am, I try to run it down every which way I can, because I feel that the people of Calaveras County need to vote for their sheriff. The state law says, no, we can't. So I just really, I have a hard time with that, because this is supposed to be, this is a very important position. It's a people's sheriff. It's very important. So then it comes down to appointing somebody. The next step would have, in our minds, would have been to appoint temporarily, or at least until the next election, appoint Captain Macedo, because he's next in line already. He's already, by default, moves into the position even without appointment. He's used to what's going on there. He's been working it for many years, and it's the least amount of conflict, I believe, within the sheriff's department. Turns out that he doesn't qualify because he is a non-resident of the county. And so, so again, going back to looking at every code and law, and Megan already pointed it out. And so, then you find things that say, oh yeah, well, the board can waive that requirement. But then keep going. I mean, law is terrible, in my opinion, when it comes to research. For the average person anyhow. Maybe not for a lawyer, they kind of like that stuff. But for me, it's confusing. And so we ended up finding out that that is a requirement that cannot be waived because of him being a constitutional officer. And so now we're down to an appointment. And how do we do that? That'd be the question. I would like to get some ideas on what we're going to do and how we're going to do that. And then on is it the February 3rd meeting or the 120 days?
It was scheduled for to be heard again on the February 9th meeting.
So on February 9th, that we have set a clear direction on what that will be. But between now and then, it would be, in my mind, it'd be a good idea to get some ideas, whatever people have. I don't know exactly what they are, but this isn't like hiring a department head or any regular county office position. This is, in my mind, the most highest and most important position in our county, and we can't take that lightly. We have to do everything we can to make sure that we get the best possible sheriff for the people of Calaveras County. If I sold it any shorter than that, then I would be catching a whole much more flack than we caught today so far. And as a matter of fact, we probably are going to anyhow. But I want to make sure that I want to make sure that the people know that we are doing everything we can to make that right decision for them. And it isn't just, oh, well, I like this person or I like that person. I personally I haven't met a deputy that I don't like. They've all been very good, especially through the fire and that whole catastrophe. The way that everybody stepped up, I was just amazed on the people that we have in that department. And so I just want to make sure that the people get the best possible sheriff that they can possibly get for Calaveras County, for them. Has very, and I want the best possible choice myself. So I am interested in hearing and I know that there's 2 people in here right now that's internal that are interested, and I don't have anything, any quorums with either one of them. I don't know too much about them, except for on a personal level that I've spoken with them and have worked a little bit together with them. Other than that, how do you choose the most important position in the county? Really, to me, without it being an election. So I wanted to bring it up today so that we can discuss that and come up with a clear direction so that everybody knows, everybody's on the same page. It's transparent and clear. I have my ideas, if you're interested. If anybody else has ideas, that'd be great. I'd like to hear them. And we can start with the public if you like.
Chair, before we go to the public, I have a comment. This is important. It's one of many important decisions that we make. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion and individuals looking at law and county codes and state election information. Before we go to the public, I would ask that we hear from Megan from the legal, just to refresh our memories. And I'd also like to hear from Rebecca in regards to the election and in that code process, I guess you might say.
Yeah, because we received an email, was a few days ago, from Rebecca, because I asked for this agenda item, and she, so she sent us all an email that her election side of it was, it made it very clear, and it was, you know, for us, well, for me anyhow, and so maybe that's something that the public would like to hear as well.
Rebecca Turner, County Clerk Recorder and Registrar of Voters. I did send the board an email just because I had heard that basically everybody was interested in an election. I'm not saying that myself was opposed. The unfortunate part that is holding an election would be illegal, and the end result would be it wasn't a legal election in the first place. So I basically just put together some notes, and most of it was really Megan's research already. So it was nothing new, and it was not anything we hadn't heard before, but basically going back over why I couldn't place an item on the ballot regardless if the board directed me to, because the board simply doesn't have the authority to direct an election in this scenario. So the only action that could be taken at this point is for the board to make an appointment for that position. So if you have further questions in regards to that, I'd be happy to answer them, but I really don't have anything further to say on the subject. Yes.
Chair, I have a question. Rebecca, could you address the issue of special election, number one? Can we hold a special election? And number two, what is a special election?
A special election would be anything outside of the ordinary election process. So if you were to consolidate an item that the governor didn't call to be on this coming ballot, it would be considered a consolidated or special election. So the governor actually ordered the election for June of 2016 yesterday, and on it, it basically says the state offices that are going to ballot and the local offices as they would ordinarily go to ballot. So since the county offices do not go to ballot and only in a gubernatorial election, which would be 2018 and every 4 years consecutively after that, if you put a county office on the ballot for June, it would be a special election because they wouldn't ordinarily go on that ballot.
Unless it was scheduled for that.
Unless it was scheduled, and that would be with the governor. And the code states, actually I think it's the Constitution states that the county offices are to be on the same ballot as the state governor.
Yeah. Follow-up question then. So a special election is one that would be put on the ballot in the circumstances for an office that needs to be filled outside of the existing rules for election. Is that what you said?
Correct. Typically, a special election where the board does have authority to put an item on the ballot would be a measure. There is one instance if an office was vacated prior to the incumbent taking office, then the board has the authority to call a special election for that. But if the incumbent or the seat is not vacant prior to the incumbent taking office, then the board has no authority to call an election for that office.
So special election is exactly what it says.
Especially
for those things that's not covered by election law.
Yep. Or where it is
election
covered by election law, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Rebecca.
And as far as my opinion continues to remain, as I previously indicated last time we met, and I concur with what Ms. Turner indicated, that this item cannot be put on the 2016 election because it in essence would be a special election, and it's clear that a special election cannot be held to fill this type of vacancy. The legislature did carve out an exemption to the general rule, and that is in 25304.5, which was something that we discussed last time. That carve-out exception does not apply to the facts of the situation that we're dealing with here. And so by that, we have to go by the general rule, and that is that it would be, one, has to be filled by appointment, and two, it would be for the full term. The appointment would be for until the next, correct, until the next general election to fill this position.
And 3.
And of course, well, any appointment, the appointment has to, any appointee has to meet the same requirements as an elected. So you would look at the requirements for somebody running for that position, and any appointee would have to meet the same requirements, and residency is one of those requirements. So.
Question. Council, is there anything that the board needs to be aware of regarding this appointment that we may not be aware of, as any procedure or any limitation or anything that we have to be concerned with in your research? Have you found anything like that?
I'm not sure what you're getting. I don't know. I don't know what you're asking.
Is there any criteria or standards that the board has to use in making this appointment?
They have to meet, the person who the board considers to appoint has to meet all of the legal requirements for the position of sheriff.
Can you dictate those, can you state those requirements? Do you know offhand?
I can look them up.
And I do this just for the general education of all the folks involved, and especially the folks on television, so we know that we're all on the same page, biting out the same apple.
The general requirements are that they are a registered voter residing in Calaveras County. That's under Government Code 24001. And they also must meet one of the following requirements outlined in 24004.3. I can go through all of those. It's a rather lengthy list. If you bear with me, I can just read. This is a general overview of what it is, that they are active or inactive advanced, that they have an active or inactive advanced certificate issued by the Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, an active or inactive advanced certificate issued by the Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, 1 year of full-time salaried law enforcement experience with the possession of, within the provisions of Section 830.1 or 830.2 of the Penal Code, at least a portion of which shall have been accomplished within 5 years prior to the date of filing, and possession of a master's degree from an accredited college or university. 2 years of full-time salaried law enforcement experience within the provisions of Section 830.1 or 830.2 of the Penal Code, at least a portion of which shall have been accomplished within 5 years prior to the date of filing, and possesses a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university, or 3 years of full-time salaried law enforcement experience within the provisions of Section 830.1 or 832.2 of the Penal Code, at least a portion of which shall have been accomplished within the prior 5 years, and possess an associate's degree of arts or an associate degree in science or equivalent from an accredited college, or 4 years of full-time salaried law enforcement experience within the provisions of Section 830.1 or 8.2, at least a portion of which has to be within the last 5 years, and possession of a high school diploma or equivalent. Those are the main criteria. Again, those are outlined in Government Code 24004.3.
Thank you, Counsel.
Thanks, Megan.
And then Megan, in addition to that, I either read or heard that you had asked for the Attorney General's opinion on this. Was that something that you did on your own, or was that a request from the public or the board?
It was not a request by the board as a whole. There were some requests, some desire from some board members that came to me because it is such an important topic, and because I had heard the general consensus of the public comments is the desire to have it go to election, and because it is such an important topic, I did request an opinion from the AG's office. I did submit the request last month. I have not received an update or status on that, but it should take a significant amount of time for them to assign it, research it, and then ultimately issue an opinion. So that is something that is in the works. That is something that's being considered by the AG's office at this point.
Thank you.
Just in case you're interested, I requested Megan to do that.
Yeah, and I assisted in that request too. Once again, as the council will probably reflect, there were conflicting laws in this particular area, as in a lot of areas dealing in law enforcement and laws of this state and country. So when you have that conflict in laws, you go to the next best source and get their opinion on it. I want to thank council for understanding and making that request.
And I just want to make sure it is clear that ultimately, one of the requirements in an AG opinion is that the request is coming from council, not from the board, and that's why I didn't come to the board for board direction, because ultimately, although it was brought to my attention and requested by 2 of the board members, it was ultimately a decision that I had to make independently, and it was an independent request from my office.
Yeah, so we tried everything we could, basically to, get an election held. So that's out. In my opinion, California's a little behind on this law, since most of the, how old is most of the
Over 100 years old is the case law.
case law is over 100 years old on this one. So,
But it's been revisited multiple times by the AG since then. So.
And I want to add to that too. I don't believe anybody on this board has a lack of confidence in our county council. Quite the opposite. This is just such a very important decision that they're just making sure every T is crossed and I is dotted. And we certainly want the public to have the say-so in who becomes sheriff, if at all possible. The request, I wasn't in on the request, but I did not get the sense that it was a lack of the advice that we got. It's just a very big concern, and you also have to remember that we were trying to make a decision just days after the sheriff passed away. We had barely even come to the sense that we had to make the decision. And I also want to bring to point that it has taken the Board of Supervisors several months to replace elected officials who have been, when someone has passed away in past history. So this is not an uncommon approach for the boards to be very, very careful with what they're doing.
all of that, and I just couldn't believe that we, the people, could not have an election for a sheriff. That was, it just astounded me that the laws don't allow that. I believe it now because it's been pounded into my head by many people, Megan repeatedly, actually, and now I got another one picking on me, so I give. So now we just need to move on to what the process is going to be and how we're going to do this. In my mind, we do everything we can to make sure that our county has the best possible sheriff in office, and I think that's what people would want. Matter of fact, I know that's what they'd want. I know that's what I want, and in my mind also, we make sure that if we can, to have the people have as much say in that as possible. And so how do we do this? I mean, these are things that just don't come up all the time, you know? So I at the last board meeting, we made it very clear on what we wanted to do, which was we wanted the folks within the sheriff department to reach out to HR and if they were interested, and to just to give them that information to know that they were interested. And I don't know if they've done that or not, but beyond that, from the get-go, I have always felt, I've given this a lot of thought. like I said, I have nothing against anybody in the sheriff's department at all. I talked to Captain Ballard yesterday about this. I've talked to Rick DiBasilio about this. I feel that I'm not going to change my mind on it. I feel that we need every opportunity to have a people's sheriff. And so how do we do that? I have suggestions that I've written down, and I would like to present that if the board thinks that, well, I can present it, and then the board can choose if they like it or not. I'd like to hear other board members and what they have, but first, before we do this, I would like to hear from the public to see what they have to say.
George Fry. I'm a retired peace officer. I was a parole agent for the California Youth Authority. This is another example of good governance. My preference is to hold an election. Given the fact that we cannot do that until the end of Sheriff Kuntz's term, my second preference is to leave the Sheriff's Department the way it is and have Captain Macedo be the interim sheriff as the law would provide until the next election. I don't have a problem with the other two people who have spoke up and are interested in filling Sheriff Kuntz's shoes. I want this to be a seamless process. I said that back when you held your first agenda on this item last year. Captain Macedo knows every aspect of the department. He knows the whole budget process. I don't need to tell you board members that. You know that already. I put in a call to Captain Macedo to call me when he got back from the FBI Academy in Virginia. And I didn't expect to get a call back from him for several weeks after he came back after the first of the year. And when he returned my call, it was on Monday of the day he came back. Now, Captain Macedo and I, we say hi to each other, we have respect for each other, but I'm not any special person in the community. I'm just another community member. And he returned my call, and my first words were when he said, "This is Captain Macedo," I said, "I never expected to get a phone call from you the first day," and you can ask him that question, the first day back on the job after being at the FBI Academy. And by the way, congratulations to Captain Macedo. That is a really prestigious thing to go through the FBI Leadership Academy. And so I told him what I was interested in. He said, "I'll get back to you." It wasn't 5 minutes later, he called me back, gave me the information, and that was the end of it. And so that's the kind of prompt response that every citizen in this county should be getting. And I did. That's what I got. So my whole thing, as I said before, is that I believe we ought to leave the status quo since Sheriff Kuntz's untimely death and let Captain Macedo carry on until the next election that Sheriff Kuntz, when his term would have ended. And I think we have the best sheriff's department in this county. And I don't say that lightly, because the sheriff's department is only as good as the weakest link. And I don't see any weak links there. They're there to take care of the public and take care of the public safety. So why change people in the middle? Why change horses, Chair, in the middle of the stream? Everything's functioning just fine. Captain Macio has a handle on it. I'm sure he checked in daily or weekly while he was in Quantico, Virginia. And my support, I'm not opposed to Captain Ballard. I'm not opposed to Sergeant DiBasilio. I think they're good people, but I don't think we need any change until there's an election. And both those gentlemen, along with anybody else, can run for that election. I have heard that the three lieutenants are not interested in even being appointed. So that's what I have to say about it. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Kaz Tomaszewski, Executive Director of the Calaveras Cannabis Alliance. I think that the biggest concern that all of us have had is the fact of, not having an election, having the public cut out of the process of choosing the sheriff. And also, I wanted to thank every member of this board and the effort you've put into trying to put that power back into the people's hands. I do feel personally, our organization feels that you have taken every step you could to make that happen. In brainstorming over how to get the public back in this process, the people back in this process as much as possible, we've been talking about a few things. Another thing that happens when you don't have an election, it's not only do you get robbed of the ability to choose, you get robbed of the opportunity to educate. When you have an election, you have your candidates announced. You have a period of time during which they're campaigning where you can approach them for a conversation. You can read about them in the paper. You can perhaps go to a debate. You then build your opinion from which you can cast your vote. I think an important thing to do, if it is all possible with county resources, is if we can't choose, to at least help restore our ability to get educated. The public has a poor understanding of who the candidates are at the moment. And even the names that we hear tossed around, unless you've been arrested or happen to live next to them, you might not know anything about these guys. An idea that we like, that we've been talking about recently, myself and Mark Bolger, is maybe having a meeting, something like the debates that they televise for the Republican and Democratic parties, wherein you have the candidates sit at a desk and take questions from the public. Let the public get to know them, let the public talk to them. And then when you bring it to public comment, we can have educated comments to give you for when you make your selection. I'm not quite sure what your timeline is or what impact that makes on resources, but it's something that we feel would be a good way to get us back into the process, and we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. David Tuno, Rancho Calaveras. Going to make a recommendation that is going to sound a little bit like what the previous gentleman said, but maybe put a few extra details on it. I think the idea that would be very acceptable to the public is to mimic the process of a public election as much as possible, but where you're the only voters and not us. And that process would include, for example, when there's an election, there's a candidate, there's a booklet, and you get write-ups from the candidates, what their experience is and why people should vote for them. It goes out to everybody. Those kinds of write-ups could be done by the candidates. I don't know how many candidates there are right now, but however many there are, and they could be posted on the county website. Now, not everything about a candidate shows up in writing. You make your judgments based upon how they present themselves and how they answer questions and that sort of thing. So also typical of any election is a forum, a debate, where the candidates could be asked questions by the public and by the voters, you folks, and so that everybody would have the same information that you're going to be using to make your decisions. Now, there's an exception to that. Every time there's an election, you know something about a candidate that maybe not everybody knows, and maybe you make your decision partly based upon that, and that's just the normal process. You have some history with them, or you have details of information that not everybody would have, but nevertheless, that's part of the normal election process, and that's what I'm saying. Make it as normal as possible. Mimic the process of a general election as much as possible, as opposed to the process that you would go through to hire somebody, more behind closed doors type of process. So everybody has the information, everybody sees the candidates, they get to present themselves in writing and in person and in the form of fielding questions. And then if there are, I don't know how many candidates there are, I say, but in your voting process, you would have a winnowing process where you would have a first ballot, a second, a third, however many it takes to get down to your person. So I would suggest a process, or that you consider a process along those lines.
Thank you.
This is more of a question and an opinion. Do you have to consider opening up the position and advertising it as you might for any other employment within the county, since you're not, or are you limited to making your choice by somebody somebody who is already employed within the sheriff's office? Should you be advertising it and then going through perhaps some of the open forum discussion system that the previous speakers have had, or are you going to be open to criticism if you make your selection only from people already employed in the sheriff's office and don't open it up to other people who might qualify in terms of residency and other qualifications? I don't know.
I think council.
Would you like me to answer that?
Sure. Please.
Okay.
Yes.
Like any other appointment for any other department head that would be an appointed department head, the board has the option of only looking at internal candidates or doing a full recruitment and seeking outside candidates for appointment. So that is something that is in the board's discretion, and that would be something that staff would need direction on to either open it up to external candidates or just be looking at internal candidates. When in this type of situation, because the office of sheriff is an elected position, although we're filling it through appointment under the circumstances, the appointment is open to the public setting. So, for instance, if there was a committee to vet the applicants and bring down to a certain amount of people that the board would want to consider, any candidates that the board would consider has to be done in open public setting. So that is something that is already a requirement. So any of the candidates that would be coming forward for the board would be asked all of the questions in the public forum.
And the requirement of the candidate would be still a county resident, right?
Correct.
Yeah, they have to be. That's
Correct.
That's a requirement.
Good morning again, Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. Over the last 6 years, we've had some experience with candidates, even though we don't endorse candidates. we participate in candidate forums and in the last couple of years also on TV as well. And we think we try to be objective and to allow the public to have as much information as possible so that selection hopefully would be wise. Well, the same process can occur within the Board of Supervisors. And it seems like there's three parts to this. First one is, of course, qualifications that the county council indicated. In addition to that, there's experience that may not be, that would go beyond the minimum. And then training. And there's also, because this position is so important, there's personal characteristics of integrity, incredibly important. And then in addition to that, communication skills. You could have a most wonderful person, if he can't communicate, you're going to have a hard time in law enforcement. And lastly, in the case of especially in the case of the sheriff, is understanding of the U.S. Constitution and the dedication to follow it. In other words, keep their oath. And if you have all that, then we're going to be in pretty good shape. And the question is, how do you get there? Well, of course, you need to have background information of those that would want the post, and I wouldn't limit it to just people that are in the department now. And then review that information, and you can probably do that with the committee. I'm not sure about the Brown Act and how that would work, but I think that a lot of that grunt work of gathering information and gathering questions, especially questions from the public, could give you the template to use to make a decision of all the people that are interested in the position. And I think you make a pretty good decision based on that, following that. And if right now the knowledge of the U.S. Constitution is really poor, not just among the public, but also among public officials. And I think one of the requirements that we would really enthusiastically support is a training course on the Constitution. And even though present candidates may, have not that experience, it could be a requirement that in office after a certain period of time that they actually take a course about the Constitution and fully understand it. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Bill McManus, Calaveras Project. I'm sure all of you are aware that the sheriff, second only to the governor, is the most powerful law enforcement officer in the state of California. It's not just an office that signs off on overtime or vacation requests or anything like that. They set policy for the sheriff's department, and that's why they're elected. That's why they're a constitutional officer. So to think that the sheriff's office could drift along with management as it is and get the job done is simply not the way to go. Unfortunately, the Constitution of the state of California gets in the way, and it's up to you guys. We elected you, and it is your decision to appoint the sheriff. I would ask that if, I don't know the answer to the question, maybe county council can help out. If you appoint an interim sheriff, that's a board action. Would board action be able to remove an interim sheriff prior to the next election?
I do not believe so. It appears that Ms. Turner has, she's shaking her head no, so I would be curious to hear her.
So the effect of an appointment by the board is the same as an affirmative election by the population, and the only way to make a change would be via recall then?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Well, then it's up to you guys. If you want to have interviews or, a voice contest or something like that to see, you were elected to do it. I know it's a tough choice, but we gave you our confidence when we elected you, all of us elected each one of you to sit in those chairs. It's up to you to take your responsibility seriously and look at what your job is in this county as well. Is public safety towards the top of your list? I certainly hope so. Would that fall as one of the primary requirements or for a sheriff? I hope so. So you're the ones that get to do it. You can't push it off on us. Believe it or not, the electorate does not always make the right choice at election time. So you're there, it's your job. I have confidence in this board to do the right thing and get us a sheriff that can get the department moving, start improving what the sheriff's department has to do and what its role is. And I support whatever decision you make, I support. I trust all of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Hello, Candace Kesey, Valley Springs. So Supervisor Edson, you asked us for our opinions.
Yes.
Well, could you just elect to do nothing and leave Captain Macedo in the position? Is that legal?
It's my understanding that the board shall make the appointment, so that although it's not clear on a timeline to do it, I believe that it is the board's responsibility to make an appointment to fill this vacancy. That is one area that I did include in my request to the AG is clarification on any length of time that the next person in line, essentially acting as sheriff in their capacity as captain, how long they can do that, because the law is not clear on the timeline for that.
Now, will you request to the board or make a suggestion that nothing be done until you hear back from AG? Because
certainly that is something that the board can do.
Right. Okay. My opinion is you have several people within the department that are qualified. This is a very important issue. If you open this up to outside debate, interview process, it's going to turn into a circus. It's going to be time consuming. So my opinion is you have people within the department that are qualified, so it'll be less disruptive for the department. And maybe since if you hear back from AG and Captain Macedo cannot, the board just elect to do nothing and leave him in there, maybe you ought to seek his input. And so that's just basically my opinion is I would hope that it would stay within the department, because this won't be done till the end of the year if you guys start an interview process. And I think it will look bad for everybody involved if you guys tried to pick a panel to pick our sheriff instead of doing it yourselves. It's a tough job. I respect each of you, but it's your job. It's your job. Of course, you guys do whatever you want. Don't want to do it yourselves. You pick 5 people and say, okay, you guys choose the sheriff. You need to think about it, please. Please think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace.
I would just like to clarify that if there is, in fact, a decision for a committee, it would just be vetting. Ultimately, the board can't delegate the decision of appointing the sheriff. So certainly you can ask for input, public input, committee input, but ultimately the appointing authority is with the board, and it is something that the board cannot delegate.
Mr. Chair, can I make a request? Can I request that our our HR director be present in case I have questions I'd like to ask regarding? She's here. Oh, hi. I didn't see. I was looking for you.
Would you like to do that now, and then I'll have...
No, you're fine. You're fine. I see where she's at.
Joyce Teckle, I support, as this lady said before me, drawing from the department. I was sitting here thinking, the disruption with the fire and everything, and people know these people in the department. And I just think that's the way to go. And I agree also with, don't do a committee. It's your job. Just do it. Interview the people you're going to interview, and just do it. Just do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.
That's where you guys make the big money. I'm Peter Reyes from General Inn. I heard you familiar with the law. Did you get to see any precedents to this? Precedent cases that this particular issue it's a 100-year law. Did you get a chance to review what happened in, okay.
Yeah, she's been.
Was it ever appealed and so on and so on?
It
Okay.
was a California Supreme Court
Okay,
case.
thank you.
Okay, any other public comments?
I'm Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. I have a lot of thoughts. I've been sitting here. This is not one of my areas of expertise, if there are any areas of expertise. But it seems to me the police department structure is very similar to military structure. There's a chain of command, and when the general is killed, the next guy steps up. If we're talking about appointment within the department and there are qualified people and the first line of defense does not qualify because he's not a resident of the county, then I think we need to look to the next line of defense. Sometimes it's a test of confidence. It's a matter of judgment when you start making selections. As I recall, in the 2010 election, or maybe it's 2009, when we first elected Gary Kuntz, he had an opponent, and if I'm correct, it was Ed Ballard. And it wasn't a landslide, it was kind of close. We could have had Ed Ballard as our sheriff all along, rather than Gary Kuntz, and then we wouldn't be in this predicament today. There's a difference I've found between shall and may. Shall means you will do it. May means you can do it. And in this instance, it sounds like it's something you have to do. Having a mimic election sounds like money. It sounds like we're going to be spending money if we're doing a campaign, a pseudo-campaign. And we can't afford any more money on frivolous things. If we do actually, and it's an important position, and it should not be left open-ended. And maybe they are moving along. I won't say limping along, because it sounds like they're very effective. I believe that both names that I heard as within the department have had a history with the department. I would assume they have a working relationship with all the rest of the officers. And I would feel confident that anyone in the department, as Mr. Edson says, they're all wonderful people and good workers and loyal to the department, to the county. The test of a constitutional knowledge, I'm not sure that when an officer is asked to perform his duties, they're tested on the Constitution. It would be nice if we all knew the Constitution, but I don't think that should be made a requirement. There is a reason for the appointment, and it's that the office does not remain unoccupied. The volunteers that I heard mentioned, I think are both qualified. Probably all the officers in the department would be qualified. And if our first selection would be Jim Macedo, but he cannot perform in that capacity as a lead sheriff, then one of the other officers who are indicating interest could fill in as sheriff, and Jim Macedo would still retain his position and his ability to perform the function. That, I think, would be the greatest continuity of service. The chain of command would be retained, and if it's internal, then I think we'll do just fine. Thank you.
Chairman Edson, through the chair, I would like to ask.
One time, George, you had your speaker ready.
I just want a clarification, because from the last meeting
George.
to this meeting, there's something legal that's a question, and I'd like to have that presented.
Okay, let me have other comments first.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that it's
More comments, please?
addressed.
I don't envy you guys having to make this decision. You know, I really don't. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. I've sat and I've listened to what all the public comments were. I think it's, there's a lot of great ideas and all that thing. What you understand, there's only 2 of us that have put in interest for that position, okay? Either one of us think that we could do the best possible job that there is. I just want to make it clear that we do have agreement that we do not want somebody from the outside coming in. And I have a complete list of why that would be ineffective. Bonnie hit a lot of those. We've got a lot of healing to do. We're spread thin. We know our department. We know our people in there. Anybody else, if that's a thought that comes in from the outside, it's going to take them multiple years to learn the operation of the sheriff's office. It's going to take them a multitude of years to learn the personnel that are living there. So, I don't want to get up and, I'm a lawman first. I'm not doing the political stuff, but it's your guys' decision to make. There's 2 of us that are interested in it, and I don't know what Sergeant DiBasile, if he wants to echo my concerns, but we don't want to go outside the department. It's our department. We know our department, and we want to take care of our department, and in turn take care of the citizens of Calaveras County. And I think either one of us could get that done. But that's up to you guys to make the decision.
And I agree with Captain Ballard. We've both been in the department. We both know the department. We work together. We have no problems with each other. And we deem to move this department in a forward motion, and bringing somebody from the outside would not do this department any good at all at this point in time. So I absolutely agree with what he says.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Pat Garahan, Valley Springs. I'll take a different tack on this here. I think it's no secret, everybody knows I ran for election last cycle. I am still interested in the job. We talked about an election, how important that was. It's off the table now, but my position is that because the position is so important, I would ask the board to establish a vetting process or an application process for all qualified applicants. That would be myself included, not just from in-house, because the job is so important. You have control over that. It doesn't have to turn into a circus, and I think we all know that there's not going to be dozens upon dozens of applicants. There'll be a very small number of people to be considered. That allows for a greater spectrum of choice, not just 2 people within the agency right now. It also allows time you can get input from your constituents. That was mentioned that it's important. We'd like that election because it's the people's choice. This allows you to get some input. Ultimately, that decision is yours, but you would probably, I would think, want input from your constituents on a short list of candidates. The result would be the best candidate for the job being appointed. Now, if that is somebody in-house, then you've put your in-house candidates against other people, and they have risen to the top. I think just having more of an open forum or broader spectrum. One of the 2 people that just spoke was one of my staunchest supporters in the last election. To now say that, it kind of cuts against the grain there, is that now this person, being myself, would no longer be qualified for consideration. I would disagree with that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Board comments?
Chair, I have a question for our HR Director, Judith.
Cliff, do you want to take lunch before the board makes their comments?
Judy Hawkins, HR Director.
Hi, Judith. How are you? Thank you for coming. I apologize for not seeing you.
Oh, no problem.
As a result of our last meeting, I recall that we instructed some type of procedure to provide folks with an intent for this position, to issue letters of intent, or what was the exact wording that you recall?
Well, we gave them 90 days to contact HR and discuss their intent, and then for us to vet if they actually met the requirements to be appointed to sheriff. As of right now, as of late last week, we only have two candidates that have contacted us, which is Rick DeBasilio and Eddie Ballard. They are the only two that have actually put their hat into the ring, so to speak, and meet all of the qualifications to be appointed to sheriff. We have reached, the HR department has reached out to other candidates in the succession plan to see if they are interested, and they are not. And so right now, I don't know or think there is any other candidates internally that are interested who meets the requirements.
So we only have two people that have responded? And that
Yes.
would be the two gentlemen that spoke here today?
Yes,
Captain Ballard and Sergeant DeBasilio then?
yes. And I spoke to them in length. Each of them discussed, challenges within the department, within the county. Both of them have strong community service. Both of them have very strong commitment and interest in the appointment.
So before we go any further, it was my understanding at our last board meeting that we asked that the the people that were, the folks within the Sheriff's Department that were interested would contact HR
Yes,
and let them know that they're interested,
yes.
but nothing beyond that.
No, and the only reason that we actually talked to anyone is we were getting rumors, and so we were trying to put rumors to bed.
So, but nothing beyond that.
Right, and like I said, we were just trying to take care of rumors and people that were getting very unhappy.
I want to give you a thought, though, okay? There are people who might be interested in it, in the department, but their life plan with their career doesn't fit into this particular instance. And is it possible, because they don't necessarily want to be the sheriff forever, but they're willing, as so many law enforcement people do, to step up to the plate and do what's required of them when asked. And there might be candidates that want to do it, but when the time is over, they don't want to run for election. They want to return to the rank and file. Is it possible to devise an MOU that if somebody other than these two candidates is interested and they want to throw their hat in the ring, that we have an MOU when that term is over and they don't want to run for election, that they return back to their position?
Well, currently, there's bump back rights, and so in the MOU, there's, we can, meet and confer with the union and put something together, yes, but there's also other concerns besides just having the right to move back to their position.
Like what?
So, we've heard different concerns about just the worrying about the different changes they may make and things like that. So some are concerned about just the future path or attitudes they may face once they go back to a position after being sheriff.
I've heard different, honestly.
I mean, that would be their choice, so.
So, but that's somebody's personal choice, yes.
And I don't think they felt that they have bump back rights in this. I think the feeling is once they serve as sheriff, they're out of the rank and file and they have to run for re-election or their career is over.
Well, and that's something that they definitely need to come to HR. We can sit down and discuss, and we can see what we can do there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any?
Question, Judith, how do we notify members of the department? Was there an email sent out? Or how do we notify anybody of this procedure?
Supervisor Oliveira, I might be able to chime in just because I wanted to remind the board, at least the direction that I recall from that meeting was the direction for staff was that we were not to reach out to them necessarily, but that the specific people on the succession list were to reach out to HR, and that it was to be limited to the succession list in the current policy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was my understanding and my recollection of what happened at the last meeting, and that it was, we asked about reaching out to other people outside of that, and that was not the direction that that staff received.
Right, and those members of that...
No, that's not what I remember. What I remember, the very last sentence, if you watch, I watched the board meeting like 8 times.
The very last sentence says that we asked that the sheriff, anybody in the sheriff's office that was interested in the position would contact HR. That was it.
That they would reach out to HR.
That's it.
I mean, am I wrong on that?
Everyone has their recollection.
Yeah, so maybe we ought to look at it again.
Let's go back to video review.
Yeah.
But no, we did not send an email or anything.
Okay. That's kind of where I left it until now, anyhow. Okay, any other questions?
Not at this time.
Okay, we've had, any other public questions here? George?
Through the chair, I'd like to ask County Council, I'd like to ask Ms. Deadfield, if my memory serves me correctly, at the last time this discussion came up on the agenda, I was of the impression that Captain Macedo could serve in temporary until the next election. Am I correct or incorrect?
The temporary position, or essentially the duties that are temporarily being exercised by Captain Macedo is just that, it's temporary. The law is not clear on the length of time that
Right.
can be instituted, but again, the language regarding the appointment to fill the vacancy is a mandatory term. It uses the word shall. So the board shall appoint to fill the vacancy. So
What's the time frame on that?
there isn't one. But my research, my review of case law, my review of all of the applicable laws would indicate that it's a requirement of the board, and that it should be a reasonable amount of time. Certainly, as long as the board is showing some good faith in moving forward towards an appointment, that is fine. But for the board to just say, we aren't going to do anything and just allow the current temporary procedures to hold out until the next election, I think would not be within the intent of the law.
Well, the only person I'm supporting in this process is Captain Macedo, but I'm surprised, and I'm not saying that Cliff's having seen it 8 times, that I'm kind of surprised that anybody else in our county that is a resident of our county didn't have the same opportunity as Captain Ballard and Sergeant DiBasilio to put their hat in the ring. That comes as a really shock to me.
And again, it can be done. It's in the discretion of the board as far as if they want to just consider internal candidates versus going out to the public. That is a decision that is in their discretion.
And so,
Which we haven't made yet.
Pardon me?
We haven't made that decision yet.
We're going to have a discussion after lunch.
Yeah.
we'll have that discussion.
Okay, I was trying to put it all together, and I couldn't quite size it up.
Yeah, we just haven't made that decision yet. You know, mainly I brought this forward because we can't have an election, want to make sure everybody knows that.
No, I understand.
And we can't, and we can't have, we can't appoint Captain Macedo because he doesn't qualify. We
Yeah.
want to make sure everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And now we're on to figuring out how we're going to do this.
Yeah, and also, I feel offended by the fact that the gentleman over here in the far left said that it was with Macedo in there, it was just going to float along. And that was not my position.
Yeah, I know that, George.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
It's okay, it's okay.
Pat Garahan, Valley Springs again. I just wanted to clarify one point there. I don't recall the exact date, but it was either late November, early December. I did in fact call HR, spoke to the department head, expressed my interest in being considered for appointment. I was told at that time that they were only looking at internal candidates until there was some further guidance from Board of Supervisors at that time. So I just wanted to clarify. I'm sure that my name was out there in the rumor mill, and that's why I made the contact with HR. So it wasn't that I was not disinterested. I did reach out, and yeah, I think that'll cover it.
And that would be correct. That would be correct.
Yeah, Chair, just to make this complete, I did receive an email from another outside candidate that I forwarded, and I don't know who that person, I've never met this person, but I did forward that to HR.
Candace Kesey, Valley Springs. I'm just unclear about what you said about the bump back. So if you put somebody in for the remainder of the term, then they can or cannot be bumped back into their position? And also, is there something where they could say, well, I don't want to run again, I'll promise not to run again? Is there something, you know, where you guys can say, hold them to it if they try to run again? You know, because that's, you know, it's part of
We do not have that power.
Right, exactly. So then, as far as the bump back, I'm sorry, I was unclear. So can that happen? Can a person get bumped back? Say you put a sergeant or a lieutenant in for sheriff, can they go back to their position?
I have not looked at the MOU. It appears that there might be language in the MOU on that issue. That would be something that I would have to continue to look at.
Okay, and my next question is, I was unclear about the letters of interest. Now, you're only taking letters of interest from within, or will you start taking from other interested now?
We haven't decided that yet.
Okay, I was just unclear. It was, okay, thank you.
I'm Rick DiVasilios, the DSA president. The MOU does state that they would be able to bump back.
Thank you. I love it when we can have an answer right away.
Judy Hawkins, HR Director, and I just wanted to clarify, when I was talking about the candidates that were interested, I was only talking about our internal candidates. I have received, of course, the email that was forwarded to me from Supervisor Oliveira, and I did receive the phone call, but since, as I was directed from the board meeting, I have only just talked with those internal candidates, and those were the two that I brought forward.
Okay. All right. So, you guys, I'm going to leave it up to you if you want to go to lunch or not yet, right now. I know somebody has expressed interest, so.
I would prefer a lunch break.
Lunch, yeah. Come back. All right, so we're gonna continue this after lunch. And so we'll be back at 1:30.